Snow hammered against the apartment windows that night. The kind of bitter New York cold that made every breath feel like glass. Lauren Whitmore clutched her stomach, another contraction ripping through her as she tried to steady herself against the kitchen counter. Her iPhone buzzed weakly in her trembling hand, another call to Chase, unanswered. She hit redial. Once. Twice. 17 times. And then her screen flashed a message she never imagined seeing in the middle of labor. Call failed. The person you were trying to reach has blocked you. For a moment, the world went silent. No wind, no sirens from the street below, just the echo of her own disbelief. Chase didn't pick up. He didn't text back. He blocked her, on the day she was bringing their son into the world. Her knees buckled. She slid onto the cold tile floor, clutching the edge of the counter with white knuckles. Her breath hitched, half from pain, half from the gut-punch realization that she was alone. Truly, terrifyingly alone. Across the city in the glowing warmth of Park Hyatt, New York, Chase Alden was lifting a glass of champagne beside a woman who wasn't his wife. The crystal chandeliers shimmered above him as he laughed at something Ava Sinclair whispered into his ear. He never saw Lauren's desperate calls. He never cared to look. Lauren forced herself up, teeth clenched, tears slipping down her cheeks. Okay, you can do this, she whispered to herself, grabbing her hospital bag. She pressed a hand to her belly as another contraction stabbed through her. But as she reached the door, her strength faltered. She collapsed again, phone dimming beside her, and in that breathless, shaking moment, she whispered something Chase would never hear. "This is the last time I'll ever call you." Outside, a taxi's headlights swept across the snow. Inside, Lauren felt her world fracture, quietly, cleanly, forever. Something had ended, and something far more powerful was about to begin. The world hadn't always been cold for Lauren Whitmore. There was a time when even the grayest New York morning felt warm because Chase Alden stood beside her. Back then, he wasn't a millionaire or a polished man in tailored suits striding down Fifth Avenue. He was just a hungry dreamer with a cracked MacBook Pro, a rented desk in a co-working space, and a smile that made Lauren believe the future could be theirs. They met 6 years earlier at a tiny coffee shop in Brooklyn, both reaching for the same last blueberry muffin. Chase had laughed first, an unguarded, boyish laugh that didn't match the calculated charm he would later perfect. He offered her the muffin. She insisted they split it, and somehow that small compromise became the foundation of everything that followed. Back then, Lauren worked long hours as a junior data analyst. She wasn't rich, wasn't glamorous, but she had stability, something Chase admired deeply. He used to say, "You're the calm in my chaos, Laur." And she believed him. She believed him when he promised he'd never let success change the way he looked at her. When Chase's startup began to grow, she was the one who stayed up with him until 3 a.m., proofreading pitch decks, cooking boxed pasta, rubbing the tension out of his shoulders. She loaned him money from her savings, just enough to keep the company alive during its roughest month. He cried when he hit his first million. She cried with him. Their wedding was small, intimate, 20 people on a rooftop in Queens, fairy lights strung across the railing, Manhattan shimmering like a promise behind them. Chase held her face and said, "I could never do life without you." The sincerity in his eyes then made it impossible to imagine he'd one day turn away from her at her most fragile moment. But somewhere along the way, success wrapped around him like a second skin. The man who once packed her lunches and kissed her forehead before work slowly transformed into someone who spent more nights at sleek midtown lounges than at home. Decisions became sharper, colder. Messages grew shorter. His laughter changed, too. No longer soft and boyish, but performative, calculated. Lauren saw the distance forming, but she kept believing the man she married was still in there, somewhere. She just didn't know that the version of him she loved was already gone. Ava Sinclair didn't enter Chase Alden's life like a storm. She slipped in quietly, like a draft under a locked door, easy to ignore at first, until the cold finally settled into the bones. She joined his company during a period when Chase was building his public image, a time when he needed someone polished, sharp, and able to charm investors before he even opened his mouth. Ava was all of those things, strategic, poised, and frighteningly intuitive. Lauren first met her at a company holiday mixer. Ava approached with a flawless smile, her red dress a shade too bold for the event, but no one seemed to mind because she wore it with unwavering confidence. She shook Lauren's hand with both of hers, as if they were old friends.
"So nice to finally meet the woman who keeps Chase grounded," Ava said, voice warm, sweet, almost too sweet. Lauren tried to brush off the uncomfortable twist in her stomach. She had met plenty of confident women before, but something in Ava's eyes, sharp, assessing, lingering a little too long on Lauren's wedding ring, felt like a warning she didn't yet understand. Chase didn't notice. If anything, he seemed energized around Ava, laughing louder, talking faster, glowing under her attention. Ava praised his ideas, amplified his presence, whispered just one more thing into his ear between conversations. Lauren watched the shift happen in real time, Chase straightening his jacket, adjusting his posture, trying subtly to match Ava's polished aura. After that night, Ava appeared everywhere. Late-night meetings, early morning strategy sessions, PR events where Chase insisted Lauren didn't need to attend because she was getting too tired with the pregnancy. At first, Lauren believed him. She wanted to. Pregnancy had drained her energy, and Chase always framed his requests as concern. But soon, the little things multiplied. Chase started hiding his phone, turning away when texting, spending nights at the office, but coming home smelling faintly of a perfume Lauren didn't recognize, something floral and expensive. Still, the betrayal wasn't obvious yet. What made Ava dangerous wasn't bold cheating. It was subtle manipulation. She began sending Chase carefully crafted reports painting Lauren as stressed, emotional, overly sensitive. Normal for pregnancy, Ava would say. But maybe she shouldn't influence major decisions right now. Tiny seeds, planted with intention.
And Chase, already drifting from the man he once was, let them grow. By the time Lauren reached her 7th month of pregnancy, joy had become something she experienced quietly, privately, like a secret she carried in her chest because sharing it no longer felt safe. Chase was always in a meeting, always on deadline, always too busy polishing the life he wanted to present to the world. Meanwhile, Lauren navigated swollen ankles, dizzy spells, and late-night cravings alone in their dimly lit apartment overlooking Astoria. One Saturday morning, she stood in the baby aisle of a Target in Queens, holding a tiny gray onesie between her fingers. It had soft little bear ears on the hood, simple, inexpensive, nothing extravagant. But the moment she touched it, her throat tightened. She imagined Chase beside her, his hand on her back, his excitement matching hers the way it did in those early years. Instead, her phone buzzed with a text from him. "Busy today. Don't wait up." Just 4 words. No heart emoji. No, "How are you feeling?" The distance was no longer just emotional. It was physical, measurable, undeniable. Still, Lauren bought the onesie. She placed it gently in the cart next to a pack of diapers and a small plush fox she couldn't resist. At checkout, the cashier smiled at her belly. "First baby?" Lauren nodded. "Yeah." She forced a smile, but her eyes burned with unshed tears. When she got home, she laid the new items on the bed, her bed, where she slept alone most nights now. She folded the onesie with care, smoothing the fabric as if it were fragile. Around her, the apartment was painfully quiet. No laughter, no soft music, just the hum of the refrigerator and the hollow echo of a life growing emptier by the day. That night, she placed Chase's hand on her belly while he slept beside her for once. The baby kicked gently. She held her breath, waiting for Chase to wake, to smile, to whisper something sweet like he used to. He didn't stir. Lauren turned away, blinking back tears. She whispered into the darkness, "I wish you were here with us. Really here." The baby kicked again, as if answering her. And in that tiny movement, Lauren found comfort. A reminder that even in her loneliness, she wasn't truly alone. But she also felt a cold truth settling in. She was parenting this child long before the baby arrived. The night Chase didn't come home for the first time wasn't marked by a fight or a dramatic exit. It slipped into Lauren's life quietly, the way all devastating things begin. She had made his favorite dinner, lemon chicken, roasted vegetables, and the soft dinner rolls he always asked for. The apartment smelled warm and comforting, a rare contrast to the growing chill between them. At 7 p.m., Chase texted, "Running late, eat without me." At 9 p.m., she called, straight to voicemail. At 11 p.m., her stomach twisted, not from pregnancy, but from the familiar ache of dread. Midnight passed. Outside, the Manhattan skyline glowed in the distance, indifferent to the pain unfolding in a small apartment across the river. Lauren tried distracting herself. She opened her MacBook Air and attempted to work through some data sheets, but the numbers blurred. Her chest felt tight, as if someone were slowly pressing down on her ribs. She checked her phone again. Still nothing. By 1 a.m., worry tangled with something darker. Intuition. That unshakable, bone-deep knowing that every woman recognizes when something in her life has shifted beyond repair. She walked to the bedroom, hand on her belly, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. We're okay." But her voice trembled. Finally, at 2:14 a.m., the door clicked open. Chase stepped in, the soft glow from the hallway revealing the truth before he could speak. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie was missing, and faintly, so faintly, Lauren almost questioned her own senses. She recognized a perfume she didn't own. Something floral, expensive, undeniably feminine. She swallowed. "Where were you?" Chase didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. "Work dinner. It went late." "Until 2 a.m.? "It happens. Don't start, Lauren. You're too emotional lately." Too emotional. The words sliced through her like a blade. He brushed past her and went straight to the shower. She stood frozen in the doorway, listening to the water run, each drop a cruel reminder that he was washing off a night she wasn't part of. When he finally came to bed, he turned his back to her without a word. Lauren lay awake, staring at the ceiling, one hand resting protectively on her belly. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. But in the quiet darkness, she felt the first crack in her marriage widen. Sharp, cold, irreversible. By the 8th month of pregnancy, Lauren had become an expert at pretending things were fine. She smiled through swollen feet, through dizzy spells, through the growing silence in their home. But nothing prepared her for the day she sat alone in the dim waiting room of her OB/GYN's office, hands trembling around her iPhone as she waited for Chase to arrive. He had promised he'd come. "It's important," she'd reminded him that morning. "I know, Laure. I'll be there," he'd said, adjusting his Mont Blanc pen in his suit pocket before rushing out the door. But now, 30 minutes past her appointment time, he still wasn't there. Her doctor finally called her in. "We can start without him," he said gently. During the ultrasound, as the technician traced the screen, Lauren blinked away tears. She wanted Chase beside her. She wanted his gasp of awe, his hand gripping hers, his smile when he saw their son kicking. But all she got was an empty chair, a void where her husband was supposed to be. After the appointment, she stepped outside into the cold wind, her scarf whipping around her as she called him again. Ring, ring.
Voicemail. "Hey, it went fine," she whispered into the phone. "I wish you had been there. I really needed you today." An hour later, still no response. That night, Chase finally texted, "Sorry, busy day. How was it?" Lauren stared at the screen, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She typed out a long message, how scared she felt, how the doctor mentioned signs of early labor, how alone she was starting to feel. But then she deleted everything. She simply replied, "It was okay." Chase didn't call. He didn't ask for pictures. He didn't come home early. Instead, at 10:47 p.m., he sent another message. "Ava needs me to review a pitch deck. Don't wait up." Lauren froze. Ava needs me. Not the company, not the team. Ava. Her heartbeat thudded painfully in her chest. She sank onto the couch, one hand pressed over her belly as the baby kicked softly, like a reminder that she wasn't alone, even if she felt like it. She dialed Chase once more, hoping, begging for him to answer. He didn't. The call rang until it died into silence, taking another piece of her heart with it. By the time Lauren reached 36 weeks, anxiety had become her constant shadow. Every tightening of her abdomen made her wonder if it was beginning, if the baby was coming early. Her doctor had warned her about the signs, told her to avoid stress, told her to rest. But how could she rest when the man she loved was slipping through her fingers like water she couldn't hold? That night, the tension in her body felt different, sharper, deeper, curling into her spine like a warning. She sat on the edge of their bed, one hand rubbing slow circles over her belly. She tried to call Chase, hoping he might come home early for once. He answered on the third ring, voice rushed, distracted. "Lauren, I'm about to walk into a meeting. Can this wait?" Her heart sank. I think something's wrong. My stomach keeps tightening. It feels different tonight." A pause. A sigh. Then, "Lauren, it's Braxton Hicks. You always overreact. Just drink some water and lie down. I'll check in later." She closed her eyes, forcing her voice to stay steady. "I really think, Lauren," he snapped softly, "I can't do this right now." Before she could respond, she heard another voice in the background, soft, feminine, too familiar. Ava, laughing. Lauren's blood ran cold. Chase lowered his voice. "Don't start imagining things. I'm working." The call ended, just like that. Lauren's throat tightened. She placed the phone beside her, breathing through the rising panic. But no amount of deep breaths stopped the sharp, rhythmic pain that began to pulse across her lower abdomen. She tried walking around. She tried lying down. She tried drinking water. Nothing helped. Another contraction hit, this one strong enough to bring her to her knees. Her breath hitched. No, not tonight. Not when she was utterly alone. She grabbed her hospital bag and set it by the door, her hands trembling uncontrollably now. She reached for her phone, willing Chase to feel her fear across the city. 1 call. 2 calls. 3. Finally, she sent a text. "I need you. Please." Delivered. Not read. Not answered. A minute later, another contraction hit so violently it stole her breath. She clutched the doorknob, whispering through gritted teeth, "Please, Chase. I need you this one time." But somewhere across Manhattan, he was already slipping away. Ava Sinclair had a talent for timing, specifically for choosing the exact moment when Chase was most vulnerable to her influence. And tonight, as the city lights shimmered against the glass walls of the Park Hyatt's ballroom, she saw her moment. Chase's phone buzzed on the table beside their champagne glasses. He glanced at the screen. Lauren, again. His jaw tensed. Ava leaned closer, her perfume, something expensive and deliberately understated, drifting toward him like a soft trap. "Another call?" she asked, voice smooth as silk. Chase rubbed his temples.
She's being dramatic. Pregnancy hormones.
Ava offered a sympathetic smile, one she had practiced to perfection. I'm sure she's fine. You know how anxiety gets when women are close to their due date. It was the kind of sentence crafted to sound supportive while planting doubt. And it worked. Chase exhaled, shoulders dropping. His phone buzzed again. A message this time. Ava's eyes flickered to the screen. I need you. Please. She hid her satisfaction behind a delicate sip of champagne. Chase, she murmured, placing a light hand on his arm. You cannot keep letting personal things pull you away. Not tonight. Not with investors watching.
Your company needs stability. You need stability. It was manipulation masked as concern. Chase hesitated, phone still in his hand. For a split second, guilt flickered across his face. Ava saw it and extinguished it instantly. Come, she said softly. Let's review the pitch deck before the presentation. You owe it to yourself. And then, like fate aligning with cruelty, Chase's phone vibrated with another call. Lauren. He stared at the screen, frustration boiling over. Ava tilted her head, voice barely above a whisper. You deserve peace, Chase. He exhaled sharply, and with one swipe, he blocked his wife's number. Ava's smile didn't reach her eyes, but it didn't need to. She had exactly what she wanted. Complete access to Chase, with Lauren pushed quietly out of the frame. Good, Ava whispered. Now you can focus. Chase tucked the phone into his jacket, trying to ignore the knot in his stomach. He didn't know that Lauren was collapsing in their apartment. He didn't know she was in labor. He didn't know this was the moment everything in his life fractured. But Ava knew her plan was working, and Lauren, alone and trembling, was already paying the price. Lauren didn't feel the moment her water broke, not at first. She only felt the sudden warmth, the shock, the instinctive terror rushing through her veins. She gripped the edge of the counter, her breath hitching as another contraction tore through her body. Okay, breathe, she whispered, though her voice cracked. She reached for her phone with trembling hands. Call Chase. He'll come. He has to come. Her thumb hit his name. Call failed. She tried again. Call failed. Her heart hammered. She blinked hard, refusing to believe what the screen was telling her. One more time. The person you are trying to reach has blocked you. Blocked. Blocked by her own husband, on the night she needed him more than ever. A sob escaped her, raw and strangled. She slid to the floor, clutching her belly as the baby pressed downward, her body urging her forward into labor, with or without support. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, Please, Chase. Please don't do this. But Chase wasn't there. He wasn't even reachable. Across Manhattan, he was stepping out of the Park Hyatt, snowflakes clinging to his coat, while Ava looped her arm through his. She didn't need to say anything. She had already said enough. Every seed of doubt she planted had grown roots. Inside his Mercedes S-Class, Chase finally opened his phone, not to check on Lauren, but to silence the buzzing notifications for good. He scrolled through the call log. 17 missed calls. He frowned. What does she want at a night like this? He muttered. Ava leaned in. She knows you're trying to focus. She shouldn't be interrupting you during a critical event. Chase sighed heavily, shoulders slumping. You're right. I can't deal with this tonight. He deleted the missed calls. Meanwhile, Lauren crawled toward the front door, sweat dripping down her temples. Each breath was a battle. She clung to the doorknob, vision tunneling, whispering apologies to her unborn son for not being stronger. She dialed 911 with shaking fingers. When the operator's calm voice answered, Lauren finally broke. I'm in labor. I'm alone. Please, send someone.
Snowstorm winds howled outside as paramedics rushed to her address. And somewhere across the city, Chase laughed at something Ava said, completely unaware that his final goodbye had already begun. Lauren didn't remember the elevator ride, only the blur of fluorescent lights as paramedics rushed her into NYU Langone Hospital. Her contractions were coming fast, too fast, and panic clung to her like a second skin. She clutched the straps of the gurney, gasping as another wave of pain rolled through her. "Deep breaths, ma'am. You're doing great," one paramedic said. She wasn't. She was terrified and alone. Inside the delivery room, machines beeped steadily, casting sharp reflections against the sterile white walls. The nurses moved with calm efficiency, but every time the door opened, Lauren's eyes darted toward it, praying Chase would burst through, breathless and apologetic. He didn't. A contraction slammed into her, ripping a cry from her throat. A nurse squeezed her hand. "You're at 7 centimeters. It's happening quickly." Lauren nodded weakly, wiping tears with the back of her hand. "Can someone call my husband?" she whispered. The nurse took her phone, dialed the number. The automated message echoed like a cruel verdict. "This number has blocked you." The nurse froze. "Oh, honey." Lauren turned her face away, humiliation burning under her skin. She didn't want pity, not now, yet pity filled the room like a heavy fog. Moments later, a new figure entered, Dr. Mason Hale. His presence steadied the air immediately. He scanned Lauren's chart, then looked at her with warm, steady eyes. "Lauren, you're safe. I'm here now. We'll get you through this." Something about his voice anchored her. Maybe it was the quiet certainty. Maybe it was the way he didn't look at her with judgment, only compassion. The hours blurred. Lauren's cries echoed against the sterile walls, her fingers gripping the rails of the bed until her knuckles went white. Sweat drenched her hairline. Breath after breath tore from her lungs. Through it all, Mason stayed close. "You're strong," he said softly. "Your baby is strong. You're not alone." Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, a piercing infant cry filled the room. Lauren's body shook with sobs as Mason lifted her son gently, wrapping him in a warm hospital blanket before placing him in her trembling arms. A tiny face, a soft whimper, a life she had brought into the world alone. She kissed his forehead. "Hi, my sweet boy." But beneath the overwhelming love was an ache that hollowed her chest. Chase should have been here. He chose not to be, and there was no undoing that choice. The room fell into a soft, aching quiet after the nurses left. Only the rhythmic beeping of the monitor and the tiny breaths of her newborn son filled the space. Lauren held him close, inhaling his warmth, memorizing every tiny feature, his button nose, his delicate lashes, the way his fingers curled instinctively around hers. But beneath the overwhelming love was a heaviness in her chest she couldn't shake, a truth she could no longer deny. Chase wasn't coming. Hours had passed since the birth. No calls, no texts, not even a generic message asking if she was all right. The father of her child didn't know, or didn't care enough to know, that their son had entered the world. Lauren blinked through exhaustion as she reached for the bedside table where the hospital had placed her personal items, her phone, still silent, her wallet, and a small notepad she used for baby name ideas. The pen felt heavy in her hand as she opened to a blank page. She hadn't planned to write a letter, but the words poured out anyway. "Chase, I don't know where to begin. Maybe you'll never read this. Maybe you won't care if you do. But tonight, while I held our son for the first time, I realized something I should have seen long ago." Her handwriting wavered as she fought to steady her breath. "I waited for you, through every contraction, through every scream. I waited because I believed that deep down, the man I married still existed." A tear fell onto the paper, blurring the ink. "But you didn't come. And that will never be something I can forget or unfeel." She paused, looking at her sleeping baby, peaceful, trusting. He deserved your presence. I deserved your support. Instead, I labored alone while you blocked my number. Her fingers tightened around the pen. So this isn't anger. It's goodbye. The kind that doesn't need shouting to be final.
I hope one day you understand what you lost tonight. She signed it simply, Lauren. When she finished, her heart felt both shattered and strangely lighter. She folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her bag. This wasn't a goodbye she ever imagined giving, but it was the one she needed. And tomorrow morning, she would act on it. For herself. For her son. For the life she refused to let Chase continue breaking. While Lauren lay in a dim hospital room, cradling their newborn son against her chest, Chase Alden was stepping into a different world entirely, one drenched in luxury, applause, and the illusion of success. The Park Hyatt's rooftop ballroom glowed under chandeliers imported from Italy, and Manhattan's skyline shimmered like a crown around him. Tonight's fundraiser was everything Chase lived for: attention, influence, and validation. Investors clapped him on the back, praising his latest projections. Cameras flashed. A Wall Street journalist asked for an interview. Chase basked in it all, a glass of aged bourbon in hand, unaware that Lauren was fighting through hours of labor alone. Ava Sinclair hovered near him, offering subtle touches and perfectly timed smiles. "You're owning the room tonight," she whispered. Chase smirked. "Feels like things are finally lining up." If only he knew what was collapsing elsewhere. Halfway through the evening, his phone buzzed. A notification banner appeared at the top of his screen. "Congrats on the new baby! Jason R., CFO." Chase froze. "What?" he muttered under his breath. Ava's eyes flickered with controlled alarm. "Something wrong?" He opened the message. Another text from a board member followed. "Hope Lauren and the little one are healthy. Send pictures." Chase felt his stomach drop, but pride, and Ava, forced him to hide it. He typed back quickly, "Thanks, we'll update soon." But panic spread under his skin. He hadn't heard from Lauren. He hadn't checked her messages. He hadn't even tried to. "Excuse me," he muttered, stepping away from Ava. He opened his call log. 17 missed calls. 17 calls he never even noticed. Because he blocked her. His chest tightened, his throat dried. His brain scrambled to rationalize it. She would have texted, he whispered to himself. She would have told me if she went into labor. But she did. He just never saw it. A wave of nausea hit him. He fumbled to unblock her number, trying to call. Call failed. No service on the rooftop. Ava approached quietly, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Chase." "Look at me. Stay calm. Tonight is important." He stared at her, heartbeat pounding. Important. Yes, tonight was important, just not for the reasons Ava thought. Because somewhere across the city, a moment had already happened, a moment he could never undo. His son had been born, and Chase hadn't been there. Chase Alden barely slept after the gala. Guilt gnawed at him, sharp and relentless, but pride kept whispering excuses in his ear. "She's dramatic. She's fine. She always overreacts." But at 6:12 a.m., he jolted awake in their penthouse, heart pounding, the early sunlight slicing through the blinds. Something felt wrong, viscerally wrong. He grabbed his phone and tried calling Lauren again now that service was restored. The automated voice hit him like a punch. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Unavailable. Not blocked, not busy, just gone. His chest tightened as he rushed to the kitchen, hoping she'd left a note, anything. Instead, he stepped into a silence so heavy, it felt physical. The house was too clean, too still, too empty. Then he saw it.
A small envelope on the dining table, his name written in Lauren's handwriting. His hands shook as he opened it. The letter unfolded softly, but the words inside tore him open. You didn't come. I needed you, and you blocked me. Our son deserved better. So did I. This isn't anger. This is acceptance. Goodbye, Chase. He sank into a chair, breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a sob. He read the letter again and again, each line a blade, each sentence a mirror reflecting the man he had become, but never meant to be. No, Lauren. What did you do? He whispered, gripping the paper like it could bring her back. He sprinted to the bedroom, yanking open closets, drawers, searching for signs she was still there. But her suitcase was gone. Her clothes, her toiletries, even the tiny gray onesie with bare ears she had shown him weeks ago, gone. Everything she touched had vanished from the home he once forced her to shrink inside. Chase fell to his knees beside the bed, clutching the sheet where she used to sleep. He hadn't cried in years, but now tears streamed down his face unchecked. In the corner, something caught his eye. A small hospital bracelet on the nightstand. Baby Boy Whitmore, NYU Langone Hospital. Born 2:14 a.m. His son. His son had been born while he laughed, drank, and danced with another woman. A sound escaped him, raw, broken, unfamiliar. Because for the first time, Chase understood the truth. This wasn't just a mistake. It was the moment that cost him his family, and Lauren wasn't coming back. Chase didn't bother changing clothes. He sped through Manhattan in the same wrinkled suit from the gala, heart pounding as he forced his Mercedes through early morning traffic. Every red light felt like a personal attack. Every passing second felt like another piece of Lauren slipping further away. When he reached NYU Langone Hospital, he ran through the sliding doors, breathless, frantic, ignoring the security guard calling after him. I'm looking for my wife, he gasped at the front desk. Lauren Whitmore, she delivered last night. The receptionist's expression shifted, sympathy mixed with something heavier. Sir, please wait a moment. A few agonizing minutes later, a man in a white coat approached. Dr. Mason Hale. Calm, steady, eyes sharp enough to read truth and guilt in a single glance. You must be Chase, Mason said, voice even. Let's talk somewhere private. They stepped into a quiet hallway, the hum of machines echoing faintly around them. Chase ran a shaking hand through his hair. Where is she? Can I see her? I didn't know she was in labor. My phone, there was a mistake. Mason lifted a hand, stopping him cold. Lauren was alone for 13 hours of active labor, he said quietly. She screamed for someone who never came. She asked the nurses to call you. She begged them to try again. And every attempt ended the same way. His gaze hardened. You blocked her number. The words slammed into Chase's chest like a freight train. I didn't think, he stammered. No, Mason said sharply. You didn't think. She cried your name while you were nowhere to be found. Chase swallowed the burn in his throat. Is she still here? Please, just let me talk to her. Mason stepped back, jaw tightening. She checked out 3 hours ago. Signed discharge papers early. She didn't want you contacted. What? Chase's voice cracked. She left? With the baby? She left with her son, Mason corrected. A son you didn't meet. A son she protected by walking away. Chase felt the hallway tilt. Where did she go? Mason's expression turned unforgiving. If Lauren wants you to know, she'll tell you. Then, with a final blow, you weren't there when she needed you most, Chase. She gave birth alone. Whatever comes next, she doesn't owe you anything. Chase pressed a hand to the wall, breath shaking. For the first time in his life, consequences had a face, and it was Dr. Mason Hale staring back at him. Chase Alden left the hospital with Lauren's letter burning in his pocket, and Dr. Mason Hale's words echoing in his skull. Shame clung to him like a second skin.
But when he stepped back into the icy Manhattan air, guilt wasn't the only thing waiting for him. His phone buzzed non-stop. Emails from board members, texts from investors, notifications flooding in. Something was wrong. At first, he ignored them. He just needed to breathe, to think, to not fall apart on the sidewalk. But then a headline flashed across his screen from a financial blog. Alden FinTech faces internal leak. Investor confidence drops overnight. His heart slammed into his ribs. He opened the article. His stomach turned. Confidential projections, strategy documents, risk disclosures, all leaked. His company, the company he'd sacrificed his marriage, his integrity, his family for, was sinking. Chase? He turned. Ava Sinclair hurried toward him, heels clicking against the pavement, face pale beneath her flawless makeup. "We need to talk," she said urgently, grabbing his arm. He yanked it away. "Did you know about this leak?" Ava hesitated, too long, and that hesitation told him everything. "You," he whispered. "You did this." "No," she insisted, stepping closer. "I didn't leak anything. But Chase, you have to be smart. If the board thinks you're unstable after tonight, they'll push you out. You need to let me help you manage this." He stared at her, realization dawning like a slow, sickening sunrise. "You're not helping me," he said coldly. "You're positioning yourself." A flicker of panic crossed her face, then vanished behind practiced calm. "Chase, don't make this personal." "Personal?" he repeated, laughter breaking in his throat. "My wife gave birth alone. My son was born while I was—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Ava softened her voice. "Chase, listen. Lauren was holding you back. You need someone who understands this world. Someone who can help you rebuild." But he wasn't listening anymore, because behind Ava, 2 board members from Alden FinTech stepped out of a black SUV, faces stern, expressions unreadable. "Chase," one said, "we need to speak with you, now." Ava crossed her arms, smugness flickering in her eyes. This was her plan, all along. Chase felt the ground shift beneath him. He had lost his wife, he had lost his son, and now his empire was slipping through his fingers. And the woman he trusted most was the one who'd set the fire. Lauren didn't leave the hospital triumphant or angry. She left quietly, wrapped in a softness she hadn't felt in years, an exhaustion mixed with a freedom she didn't yet have words for. Dr. Mason Hale arranged a cab for her, helped her buckle her newborn son into the carrier, and pressed a warm hand to her shoulder. "You're stronger than you think," he said gently. She believed him. For the first time in a very long time. The cab ride to Queens felt surreal. Snow drifted across the bridge as the city lights glowed like distant embers. Lauren held her baby close, breathing in the faint newborn scent that grounded her more than anything ever had. Her new apartment, a small sublet in Astoria, waited for her with second-hand furniture and boxes she hadn't finished unpacking. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't spacious, but it was hers. Hers and her son's. No lies, no cold silences, no walking on eggshells. Inside, she settled onto the worn couch, her son sleeping safely against her chest. She opened an Amazon box she hadn't touched since the week before, the one with Atomic Habits and Women Who Run with the Wolves. Self-help books she ordered out of desperation, not knowing she'd need them more than ever now. She flipped the first page, but instead of loneliness, she felt something new. Possibility. For the next few weeks, Lauren rebuilt her life inch by inch. She breastfed, rocked her son to sleep, and learned to make peace with the difficult nights. She FaceTimed the few friends she trusted, updated her HR manager about extending maternity leave,
and slowly created a routine that didn't include Chase or his absence. Mason checked in often, not out of obligation, but genuine concern. "How's my favorite little warrior?" he'd ask, smiling softly at the baby. "And how's Mom holding up?" Lauren found herself looking forward to those calls more than she admitted. She healed, not loudly, not with dramatic breakthroughs, but with quiet victories. Washing baby bottles without crying, sleeping 4 hours instead of 2, laughing at her son's first crooked smile.
Feeling the warmth of sunlight in her apartment and realizing she didn't miss the penthouse or its cold marble floors. She didn't miss Chase, not the way she once feared she would. Because little by little, Lauren discovered something extraordinary. She wasn't rebuilding her old life. She was building a better one. 14 months passed before Chase Alden saw his son for the first time. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning inside the Barnes & Noble at Union Square, a place Lauren visited often because the children's section felt warm, safe, and far away from the life she'd left behind. Her son, now toddling unsteadily on chubby legs, clutched a board book in his tiny hands, babbling proudly as he tried to pronounce the word moon. Lauren laughed, brushing a curl from his forehead. He had Chase's eyes, bright, stormy blue, but softer, kinder. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching. She didn't notice the man standing frozen at the end of the aisle. "Lauren?" The book slipped from her hands. Chase looked nothing like the polished millionaire he once was. His suit hung loose on a thinner frame, dark circles underlining his eyes, and the confidence he once wore like armor had eroded. His company's downfall had aged him. His guilt had hollowed him. But nothing struck him harder than the child staring back at him, wide-eyed, curious, undeniably his. The boy tilted his head, sensing Lauren's tension, and reached for her leg. Chase's breath broke. "Is that?" Lauren lifted her chin. "My son." He flinched at the phrasing. Not our son. Not anymore. "Lauren, please." His voice cracked. "I've been looking for you for months. I went to the apartment, your old job. Your friends wouldn't tell me anything. Because they knew I didn't want to be found." Chase swallowed hard. "I deserve that, I know. But I need to explain. I was told." "No," she cut in gently but firmly. "You don't get to blame anyone else." He blinked, shame washing over him. Her son tugged at her sleeve again. "Mama, up!" Chase's knees nearly buckled hearing that word spoken aloud. "Can I?" he whispered, voice trembling. Lauren's heart pulled tight, not with longing, but clarity. "No," she said softly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. He doesn't know you. He doesn't know the man who left us alone." Chase's eyes brimmed. "Lauren, I'm begging you. Give me a chance to make it right." She shook her head. "Some chances aren't mine to give anymore." And then, from behind, another voice entered the aisle. "Lauren, everything okay?" Dr. Mason Hale stepped beside her, holding 2 coffees and a gentle protectiveness Chase immediately recognized as something he once took for granted. Lauren exhaled, relieved. Chase understood. He wasn't just too late. He had been replaced. Chase Alden had prepared speeches, rehearsed apologies, imagined scenarios where he could somehow redeem himself. But nothing prepared him for standing across from the woman he lost and the man who had stepped in to protect everything Chase had thrown away. Dr. Mason Hale's presence beside Lauren was calm, grounding, steady. He didn't touch her, didn't mark territory. He didn't need to. The ease between them said everything. Lauren wasn't alone anymore. Chase's throat tightened. "So, this is him, Mason." The doctor extended a polite hand. "I'm a friend of Lauren's. Not possessive, not defensive,
Just factual, yet the truth beneath it was unmistakable. He was the kind of man who showed up. Something Chase never did. Lauren shifted her son on her hip, keeping a slight distance.
Not hostility, self-preservation. Chase took a small step forward.
Lauren, please, I need you to hear me. She shook her head gently. Chase, not here. My whole world fell apart when you left, he said, voice cracking. The company, the board, Ava betrayed me. Everything I had, everything I built, it all collapsed. Lauren inhaled slowly. I didn't leave to punish you. I left because staying was killing me. Her son fussed softly, sensing the tension. Mason stepped closer, offering his hand to the toddler, who reached for him without hesitation. The trust was instant. Chase felt the blow like a physical hit. That should have been me, he whispered. Lauren's eyes softened, but not with longing, with truth. It could have been, she said. But you weren't there, Chase. Not for me. Not for him. He swallowed hard. I thought I had time to fix things. She shook her head.
Some things break quietly. Then one day you realize they can't be repaired.
Chase's eyes brimmed with tears he couldn't hide. I don't want to lose you. You already did, she replied gently. Mason placed a reassuring hand on the child's back. Lauren's shoulders relaxed, a subtle sign of the life she rebuilt, the safety she found. Chase saw it then, the final truth. Lauren wasn't angry. She wasn't waiting. She wasn't punishing him. She had simply outgrown the version of him that destroyed her. And in that realization, Chase felt the full weight of his choices, not as regret, but as consequence. The air inside Barnes & Noble felt heavier now, as though the shelves themselves were holding their breath. Chase Alden stood rooted to the spot, eyes fixed on the small family in front of him, Lauren, her son, and Mason. A picture of the life he could have had.
The life he'd been too blind to protect.
Lauren, Chase whispered, voice breaking. Please, don't walk away from me again. She turned toward him slowly. Her expression wasn't cruel. It wasn't even angry. It was something far harder for Chase to face. Acceptance. Chase, she said softly, I'm not walking away. I walked away a long time ago. Her son reached for Mason's finger again, giggling when Mason wiggled it playfully. The sound sliced through Chase, reminding him of all the laughs he'd missed, all the firsts he'd never seen, all the moments Lauren had carried alone. He forced a breath. I want to be in his life. I want to try. You had chances, Lauren interrupted gently. You had so many. The night I went into labor, the weeks before that, the months before that. Every time I reached out, you turned away. I know, he whispered, chest aching, and I regret it every day. Lauren shifted her son onto her hip, smoothing the toddler's hair. Regret doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't erase the pain, and it doesn't rebuild trust. Chase nodded, tears gathering. Then what do I do? How do I prove I've changed? She looked at him carefully, compassion softening her features. You start by understanding that I don't owe you a chance just because you want one. He blinked, absorbing the blow. But, she continued, I'm not shutting the door forever. I just can't open it right now. Not until you heal. Not until you become someone stable, someone safe, someone our son could count on. Her words were not punishment, they were truth. Mason watched respectfully, stepping forward only when the toddler tugged at him again. Lauren's face eased when she looked at the doctor.
Chase saw it. The trust, the warmth, the safety he had long taken for granted.
So this is goodbye? Chase asked quietly. Lauren shook her head. No, she said. This is closure. She reached for Mason's hand, Not romantically, but with gratitude, and began walking toward the exit. Her son rested his head on her shoulder. For the first time, Chase didn't chase after her. He let her go, because loving her now meant respecting her peace. Spring arrived in New York quietly, melting the last traces of winter from the edges of Central Park. Lauren walked along the winding path, her son toddling beside her, holding her hand and pointing excitedly at every bird, every leaf, every runner passing by. The world felt gentler now, lighter, like it had exhaled with her after months of rebuilding, grieving, and growing.
Mason Hale was waiting for them near the Bethesda fountain, a soft smile tugging at his lips as he watched the little boy wobble toward him. He knelt, arms open, and the toddler launched himself forward with a squeal of joy. Mason caught him effortlessly, lifting him into the air as laughter echoed across the water. Lauren's heart warmed in a way she once feared it never would again. "You two seem to be having fun," she said as she reached them. Mason shrugged playfully. "He's teaching me all the important words. Bird, rock, snack." "Snack is definitely his favorite," she teased. They sat together on a nearby bench. Mason handed her a coffee, her favorite order, somehow remembered without her ever telling him twice. Her fingers brushed his, and instead of flinching like she once did with Chase, she felt steady, safe. After a moment, Mason cleared his throat, his expression shifting into something softer, deeper. He placed a small velvet box on her lap. Lauren froze. "Mason," he raised a hand gently. "Before you open it, just listen." She swallowed, nodding. "I know what you've been through," he said quietly. "And I know you're still healing. But I also know the strength you've shown, the mother you've become, and the woman you're rediscovering. I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here because I choose you. Both of you." Her eyes stung. He opened the box himself, revealing not a ring, but a delicate pendant engraved with her son's initials. "This isn't pressure," Mason continued. "It's a promise. When you're ready, whenever that is, I'd like the chance to build a life with you. One grounded in honesty, in presence, in love." Lauren covered her mouth, overwhelmed. She looked at Mason, at her child curled happily against his chest, and at the sunlight shimmering across the fountain. For the first time in a long time, her heart didn't hurt. It hoped. She placed her hand over Mason's and whispered, "I'd like that, someday." And someday was enough. Because Lauren finally had everything she once begged for: love, safety, respect, and a future she didn't have to fear anymore. All right, my wonderful friends, we've come to the end of this emotional story. And if you are still here right now, listening, breathing slowly with me, then something in Lauren's journey must have touched you in a way you didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it reminded you of someone you love. Or maybe it reminded you of a moment when you finally chose yourself. Stories like this aren't just drama. They're mirrors. And as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Lauren couldn't change Chase. She couldn't change betrayal, loneliness, or the heartbreak of giving birth alone. But she could change how she rebuilt afterward. And that is the part that belongs to every one of us. Life will hurt. People will fail us. But healing is not about pretending it never happened. It's about rising again with clearer eyes, steadier steps, and a heart that finally chooses peace. So, if this story stayed with you, take a breath, place a hand over your heart, and remember, you deserve the kind of love that shows up, the kind of respect you don't have to beg for, and the kind of future you can walk toward without fear.
If this message reached you today, don't keep it to yourself.
Like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you never miss the next story that might just change the way you see your own life. You being here means more than you know, and our journey together is just beginning. This story is a work of fiction created solely for entertainment and emotional reflection. Any resemblance to real people, events, or situations is purely coincidental. The characters, locations, and circumstances are narrative tools designed to explore themes of resilience, healing, and personal transformation. Nothing in this video should be interpreted as factual reporting or real-life claims. Our goal is to encourage reflection, empathy, and meaningful conversation, not to represent actual individuals or documented events. Viewers are invited to interpret the story symbolically and draw inspiration in ways that feel personally helpful. By watching this content, you acknowledge that it is dramatized storytelling meant to uplift, not to misinform. If you enjoy these narrative journeys and the lessons within them, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay connected with future stories crafted just for you.